cannot love. Every line is bound to maintain it. You got to knock the legs with eye. Don't throw stones, you don't know. Stop what you say, it's what you do. Don't throw your stone.
Hello, welcome back to Out on That Line. This will be track 12. My name is Geoff, here with my co-host as always, Alex. Alex, how you doing this week?
Geoff, I'll tell you what, I'm doing a lot better than the people at the fucking CMAs.
Well, yeah, thinking about a week and a half will certainly be better than the people at the CMAs.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
What a disaster.
So this week we're going to talk about the Tame Impala's new album, The Slow Rush. But first, if y'all haven't heard, the CMA Awards, the Country Music Awards, are happening, I think, as we record this here on Wednesday night on November 11th. And it is indoors. They have really kind of screwed the pooch here on this whole COVID thing as cases top, to record highs so far this year. It is just ridiculous that they're going through with this. And I think we both saw the Vulture article is kind of where we're drawing our information from. So this, to me, just seems like the dumbest idea of all time, like completely unnecessary.
It's astronomically stupid, and they've completely fucked it up in terms of the way they're holding the event and then the messaging around it. Like every opportunity they've had, they just trip over their own dicks. It's wild. So I first heard about this whole drama because I follow Miss Margot Price on Twitter, and she had this little grab of the Vulture article, and she was like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? How can you guys continue to, like, with so many examples of other awards bodies that are doing it right, how can you insist on doing it with people in the audience? And that's not even the tip of the iceberg with just everything that's wrong with this ceremony.
Yeah, and they also, if people weren't aware, apparently there's drama over Garth Brooks removing himself from contention for Entertainer of the Year. Now, he has won, I think, 3 out of the last 5 years or something like that, and hasn't released an album to my knowledge. And it's because he just gets unbelievable tour numbers, unbelievable money from tours. I mean, the guy is like, I was talking about it with friend of the pod, Tanner, the other night. He's basically, I would think, like the Bruce Springsteen of country music as far as how he tours and the shows he puts on. Not knocking him at all. And I think he might be the only one coming out of this smelling like roses by removing himself from contention. Because when he won last year, people were pissed. Everybody thought it should have been either Miranda Lambert or Eric Church that won it. And I don't fucking know. I have an opinion on that whatsoever, but to say that Garth Brooks doesn't deserve to win it, and then he had to remove himself just to be like, I don't feel like dealing with this shit at all. So I'm just taking my name out of the hat. That's just a little cherry on top to the whole CMA's just absolute dog shit decision making this year.
Well, it's like when Tom Green removed the Bum Bum song from TRL after it hit number 1. He just didn't want to deal with the flack from the fucking Backstreet Boys stands. Yeah,
and the record labels were threatening to boycott MTV because they were like, you need to get our songs on there or get a real song, because it's like at that time it was Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Backstreet Boys, like you were saying, and that song was way better than anything any of them ever released.
Oh my God, if you told me he wrote it in an afternoon while he was drunk, I'd still be like, great, enshrine it in the Hall of Fame, like way better than any of that horse shit.
Well, I hope he wasn't sober when he wrote the Bum Bum song. I mean, damn. So getting back to the CMAs here, we have some really choice artists that have decided to speak up about this, namely Florida Georgia Line.
You!
One of which has tested positive for COVID.
Which one, Florida or Georgia?
I don't know. Which one? Is it Tyler Hubbard? He tested positive. He's one. I don't know who the other guy in Florida Georgia Line is. I don't care. But he's got COVID. And so he's taken himself out of the festivities. The other guy, I guess, is still going because they haven't hung out together or something. But apparently this guy, Hubbard, the other guy, Brian Kelly, the other person in Florida Georgia Line, I'm just getting further down the article. His name is Brian Kelly. Posted a photo of everybody celebrating Joe Biden's election win when everybody took to the streets. It was a big celebration. He said, quote, Time to go back to work, America, booking shows ASAP. Obviously referencing, well, if these people can go out in these kind of crowds, I should be able to get them to my country concert and sing to them about solo cups and make me some money. You know, it's just the most fucking ridiculous equivocation that I've ever heard of, that he decided that people celebrating a historic presidential election where the highest voter turnout of all time and probably one of the most polarizing presidents we've ever had. And you and I think are both fully on the side of that he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And no free ads, not going to say his name on the pod. But yeah, of course he's going to say time to go back to work, America. That's what you see everybody's grandparents posting on Facebook right now. It's garbage.
Oh, well, I can't go to Applebee's and get 2-for-1 apps, but you can protest black people being killed by the cops. I don't understand how that's fair. I'm like, well, we have larger problems then than your lack of appetizers, don't we?
Yeah, right. I mean, Friendly's just declared bankruptcy, and we're worried about getting 2-for-1 apps at Applebee's. This is bullshit.
Have some perspective.
Yeah, this is garbage.
Well, then, doubling down on the fucking Florida Georgia line douchebags. First of all, that music, if you can call it that, I'm being generous, is unlistenable garbage. I've heard cats fuck with more harmony than Florida Georgia line. Like, fuck them. And now there's this other guy doubling down on their rhetoric. Who is Morgan Wallen?
He is the one that got booted off of the SNL show because there was Instagram videos of him like making out with girls in a crowded bar, like no masks. And they told him, and he said he like took himself out of the running, and Lorne Michaels was very supportive, but Lorne Michaels was probably like, you just done fucked up, buddy.
Not since Shane Gillis. Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Do you even
so I don't know his music at all. Like okay. I don't have any idea. But the other guy, Lee Bryce, has been putting up Instagram videos all year of him packing concerts, people not wearing masks. I mean, it's just the audience is it's very easy to tell what sort of folks are going to be in the audience for that kind of music. And if you like that kind of music, we're talking about you. Like, don't think just because you're a friend of the pod and listening to this right now that you're any less of an idiot for listening to that music and maybe going to those concerts, because right now we are worse with the pandemic than it has ever been. So all those lockdowns that we did, it's going to be worse now because people didn't get their shit together and just had to go out and get their 2-for-1 apps at Applebee's. It's just bullshit decision making is putting us in such a tough spot right now.
Oh yeah. Who the fuck is Lee Bryce, by the way? Again, I don't like, who are these people?
I think they were all in the same fraternity in college. Every one of these country guys, Luke Bryan, Jason Aldean, all of them went to the same fraternity. Because they all make the same music.
Christ, Kappa, you! Like, what the fuck?
Just garbage. But thankfully, our girl Margot Price is taking a stand. So, I do think we need to give some credit to the folks that we have not only talked about on the podcast, but also have just mentioned. So Margot Price not attending, and I think rightly so. Sturgill Simpson fucking hates the CMAs anyway, so he wasn't probably going to go regardless. But I can tell especially he wouldn't be going this year, because why would you put yourself at risk like that? I'd imagine a lot of other people. I don't think Tyler Childers is going. He may not have even been invited. I mean, all these people that make the country music that I think I'm going to still be talking about in 20 years are not even getting recognized by this organization anyway. So it's such a trash event to start with. And then all these people, like, that's the only thing they have to hold on to. When's the last time I heard a Miranda Lambert song? I don't even know.
I can't even name you one.
I mean, Casey Musgraves has written some of them for her. So some of Miranda Lambert's songs were written by other people. So it's like, I'm not knocking people for singing songs that were written for them, but it's like, if you're going to be like really upset about not being Entertainer of the Year, like, you got to bring more to the table than that. Like, you think you're bringing more to the table than Garth Brooks?
Yeah, right? Like,
I mean, it's...
Yeah. I don't know.
Who do you think you are?
Well, and that's... I'm conflicted, too, because, like, what have we ever talked about Luke Combs?
I think you've mentioned him, and I've listened to him a little bit, and I do think he sounds too much like the kind of country that I'm just not into. Like, lyrically, it's okay, but he does, I think, not even toe the line. I think he really just hops that fence into the tailgates and tan lines country a little too much for me.
I got to tell you, man. Yeah, I came out of the gate real hot being like, I can get behind this. It's got a mainstream sound, but the lyrics, like you said, offer a little bit more than I think you get from She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy. Mm-hmm. But like, and again, this is not a reason to dislike him. It's just like indicative of the fact that he's kind of a commodity more so than an artist. Mm-hmm. But like he shills for his own brand of like fleece line Crocs, and he's like in Bass Pro Shop commercials, and he's like Larry the Cable Guy now. And like my natural instinct, I need something to rail against. So like anybody who's too corporate, I'm coming at you with both barrels. And he kind of like seems to be moving in a CMA darling direction. And that kind of raises my hackles a little bit, which is probably an elitist douchebag thing on my part, but whatever.
Well, no, I think if you're going to look at music as like the universal language, you know, like we've talked about however many times on this pod so far, you know, it's like if you're just writing a song because you know it's going to make you a lot of money, you know, it's you can do two things at once. Like a good song can also make a lot of money. Like there's not saying that there's that problem, but it's, if you're specifically going in, okay, I got to write this pop song, I got to hit these like subjects because these are what sells, like these are what's going to get. And you're specifically thinking about when you're at a concert, you know, what are people going to sing back to you? You got to make the lyrics easy enough to remember that everybody's going to be able to sing them along to you through the whole thing. And it's just, I feel like their motivations can definitely be called into question on why they're producing this kind of music. And I think Luke Combs he started out, and I think it was that he was kind of in that outlaw country kind of mold, like the Tyler Childers or Sturgill Simpson, that kind of thing. But then he realized that he's got that really sweet country voice, you know, that really, really radio friendly, radio ready voice. And he was like, shit, I can make a lot more money than those guys are. And he started catering to that, you know, and it's just more power to him, I guess. But you know, I'm not gonna go buy his albums.
Well, and he's a fucking big fat slob married to a total babe, and he's the like, I think he's a North Carolina boy done good, and like that's great. That's all great. That's all aspirational. But I mean, I enjoyed the first album. This one's for you. I like that one. There's a lot of fun songs on it, and Tanner and I 2 summers ago had us a summer singing the songs from that. And that like got me through the transition to Brooklyn when I was like, oh, I miss the boys. I'd listen to, that was in the rotation, and I'm like, oh, okay, I feel a little less homesick now. But I think what you see is what you get is the most recent one. Mm-hmm. Oh boy. And I don't know if it was just like I was fully Brooklyn mode at that point, but I'm walking around Greenpoint and I'm like, this is not that good. And then COVID hits, and like, he makes a COVID. Anyone who wrote a COVID song, I hope you fucking get it. I hope you get it, because it's the most.
Earned it.
It's exactly what you're saying. It's the most like crass commercial fucking horseshit move to be like, well, everybody's sick with the coronavirus and they can't see their loved ones, so who do they want to hear from right now? Not that little fucking wimp Fauci about next steps and preventative measures. Fuck that. They want to hear from Luke Combs saying, someday when this is all over, we'll get back together and have ourselves a beer and a barbecue. Yeah, no shit, dude. But like, it's just like, it's not helpful. The Imagine video with Gal Gadot and all the other celebrities was not helpful. Will Ferrell, who looked like he rolled out of bed at gunpoint to record his part in that. I just don't like, that's the kind of shit where I'm like, ugh. And then you got like Van Morrison writing an anti-lockdown song. I'm like, you guys need to shut up. You're all just damaging yourselves horribly. Just stop while you're ahead.
Just artistically ignore the pandemic, ignore the coronavirus, ignore all of it. Just please don't even mention it. Even like on the good side, if you want to start singing about how, you know, it's like you're pissed off that our president is not like enacting lockdowns or didn't say to wear a mask until like September. You know, I don't even want to hear that. Like, just stay away from it completely. It just should be off limits. You know, it's just the classic, if you don't pay your $1.05, who will kind of bullshit song, you know? And it just is, it's not going to be relevant 6 months from now. It's hardly relevant now. You know, it's just trash, you know?
It's like
And
a one man, one woman, we are the world for all of them. I'm like, you guys are ridiculous.
And that's the population that's dominating the CMAs tonight. That's exactly the folks that are going. And it's just really, politically, they've dropped the ball. Pandemically, they've dropped the ball. I mean, they tweeted out, it's been a year, y'all, but for 3 hours next Wednesday on ABC, this is a no drama zone. Basically, like a nice little like wink and a nod saying, no politics talk, don't do that.
Yeah.
But then you have these chuckle fucks like the guy from Florida Georgia Line and Lee Bryce saying like, oh, it's time to get back to work, America. We got to book some shows ASAP. It's like, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't have spent all of your money on that $150,000 truck. Saved a little bit. I'm sorry you can't go on tour right now, but just hang out for a bit. Don't put all your fans in danger. They got to buy your records. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, you've got a small well to draw from in the first place, my friend. You don't want to damage that brand any further. But God, it's just so frustrating. And then no politics. We don't want to scare you guys with talks of Joseph R. Biden and Kamala Harris. We won't talk politics and get into that, but we will use as the theme in all of our advertising, stick that in your country song, which is an Eric Church song, which is condemning all this shit that you're talking about.
Yep. It's like when politicians use Born in the USA or a song like that. It's like they completely missed the point. And I'll tell you, I doubt, Eric Church has always kind of towed that line between, being the really, really commercial versus the outlaw country. And it's kind of album to album, whether he does. Like the Mr. Misunderstood album is awesome. The Outsiders album is awesome. And then he's got, some other songs that are just very much, I know when he saw them, he's like, oh, I can make a lot of money recording this song, so it's, he definitely toes that line. I've got a lot more respect for him because I like a lot of his songs than I do for most of these guys. So we'll see how he handles the CMA thing. I'd be interested to see that. I know Miranda Lambert's not handling it great. Guys like fucking Sam Hunt and Kane Brown and these people that are like the SoundCloud country kind of guys that just, they're excited to be there because they haven't given a shit about COVID since it started.
Of course.
Yeah.
They're just trash for exposure. People. Yeah.
Yeah. Trash people.
And what's fucking hilarious too is, so it's going to be held indoors and they'll be admitting people. And of course, two of their guys test for COVID and their byline is, well, it looks like our preventive measures are really working. And it's like, what do you mean? Because 2 people self-reported that they had symptoms. How many people do you think are going to go who may be asymptomatic or I don't feel well, but I'm not missing the fucking CMAs? What if Luke Combs throws his pick to me?
Yeah.
There are people who are not going to be smart about it and they're going to fucking run right through your protocols like the Kool-Aid man through a wall. But they know that too, and they've already caught so much flack for having people in the audience. So they literally told the Associated Press, you may not come. And when the AP said, okay, that's fine, you're doing us a favor, how about you just give us some screen caps and we'll post those? And the CMA said, nah, not going to do that either. Because it's just, as they seek to undo one fucking complete botch, they just make it 1,000 times worse. Oh, we don't want you over here seeing all the people in the audience, so we won't give you pictures. Associated Press, who can literally go, hey, world, guess what the CMAs did? They don't want you to know that there's going to be people in the audience. Streisand Effect City, now you're all thinking about it. How fucking stupid do you have to be?
Did you see the update on how they're handling the Associated Press and what happened with that?
No.
So the Associated Press has pulled out of covering the CMAs this year. This was updated at 1:15 this afternoon. They wouldn't allow a live photographer into the ceremony. They suggested that AP pay for photos of the show instead. So
great.
These were going to be either doctored or taken specifically to show social distancing, so probably just taken directly behind the front row so you can't see anybody else. But just what a hot, I just saw that update now. What a hot fucking load of garbage this is. They are not allowing, the Associated Press is you can say what you want about any of the other media outlets. The Associated Press, I think, is pretty much as down the middle as it gets, as far as just we're going to show you what happened. You make your own decision about that. And they're like, okay, we're not even going to bother going because they can't be unbiased about it. They're not allowed to take the pictures. If they take them, I'm sure they're going to get lawsuits out the wazoo from the CMAs. It's just ridiculous what they're doing with this.
It's fucking crazy. And like, unfortunately, it's a lot like when Vince McMahon and WWE do something malfeasant and greedy and shitty, or like when they run an angle where it's like, Rusev's wife cheated on him with a black guy with a big dick, and like, isn't that funny and hilarious? And they fell in the wedding cake and they're peeing on each other. Like, anytime they do an angle like that it just makes wrestling look so fucking stupid, and it affirms what everybody who doesn't follow wrestling already thinks about it. And for those of you who don't follow wrestling, it is as fucking stupid as you think it is. I'm a born-again anti-wrestling guy. Fuck that shit. But, like, unfortunately, shit like this makes country music look like it's for the great unwashed, the dumb redneck. And, like, that's not me saying, all Southern people and all fucking country fans are fucking dumb. But think about how this does work to the fucking smug elite in, like, San Francisco. How gauche, they're having the Country Music Awards in of doors, and there'll be no social distancing, and the gentleman from Florida Georgia line is anti-Biden and anti-mask, and let's get America back to work. And, like, it's affirming all the negative stereotypes that everybody has about this genre of music, which sucks for people like Margot and Casey Musgraves, even though she's, like, kind of more mainstream. But, like, it makes it harder for you to go, yeah, check out Sturgill Simpson. What kind of music does he make? Country. Bah. You mean like my truck left me and my dog cheated on me with my wife? And you're like...
And my wife broke down? It's I feel like we just have to have a better way of describing, even though Sturgill and like Tyler Childers and Margot and like Casey Musgraves, even though they're all country artists, like maybe we got to come up with a different way to describe them if people haven't heard of them before. Because it's like, I don't think they want to be associated with folks like that either.
Which sucks because there's a storied history to the genre. I mean, country, outlaw country, like no matter, even if you just gussy it up and call like, okay, Casey Musgraves, cosmic country, Chris Stapleton, outlaw country, it's still country. So like, and Americana is a different genre. Do you fold them in under that? Is that disingenuous? Or, it sucks because you're not allowed to like revel in the history of your forebears like Willie, like it just sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, it's been totally this tailgates and tan lines kind of country has totally co-opted the whole thing. And there always was really good like pop songs. Like George Strait was never an outlaw guy, but George Strait country songs are still incredible. You know what I mean? There's a difference between that because there's some clever songwriting there. There's some real honest human emotions that he's putting into that stuff. And then to get to this, like I said, this tailgates and tan lines bullshit where it's like, the most emotional they ever get is when they talk about like their dead grandpa or something because they were driving in his truck, and it's like, sometimes there's some good stuff that you can pull out of that. But when that's as deep as you emotionally get, your music's not going to be very good because your subject matter is only going to be superficial and it's not going to be something that's worth listening to more than once.
Well, and just like it's becoming so homogenized. It's basically like, hey, are you white? Are you clean cut? Are you conventionally attractive? Can we give you 2 first names? Or 2 last names? Can you be Hunter Parker, Morgan Wallen, Boone Bennett, fucking Dickie Moon, like all the, like, there is no Johnny Cash or anything like that anymore. It's all just like, they're ridiculous. They're all just like a knockoff of each other. Mm-hmm. And like, it's too easy to parody. It's like Trump and South Park. South Park had nothing they could do about Trump because how do you parody that which in and of itself is a parody? And that's kind of unfortunately where like top 100 country music, like you say, I love it, tailgates and tan lines, that's just kind of where it's at. So unfortunately, all the good ones are on the fringes, but hey, more for us, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. So what do you say we talk about something that we were a little more excited about? I guess this one got us pretty excited, but in a bad way.
We're pretty
Let's talk about
up.
something. Yeah, let's talk about something that got us excited in a good way. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how we came upon doing this album for this episode?
Okay, well, friend of the pod, a friend of mine from grad school, Noor. Hello, Noor. Had no idea she was listening. Hadn't spoken to her in a while. She chimed in and was like, "Yeah, so I see that you guys take requests if you listen to the new Tame Impala." And actually, as you and I were talking about before we went on the air, I was like, the only Tame Impala that I know off the top of my head is the song Elephant. And what I remember it for is it had this like really kind of scuzzy, not lo-fi, like a more, because like lo-fi kind of implies you recorded it on your iPhone, but it had kind of the spirit of lo-fi with more production value behind it. These really crunchy guitars, kind of a punky sound. And I really enjoyed that song quite a bit, and it's made it into rotation for a couple years now. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, if it's anything like that, then yeah, this should be really fun. And it cut to us listening to the slow rush and being like, it's a little more cosmic than I think either of us was anticipating.
Yes, definitely a lot more. I got a lot of like kind of like European like house music out of this one, and on a lot of songs, there's a lot of different things that it was all electronic. I don't, he definitely had some like layers of guitars and things like that in there. Maybe some like acoustic instruments, but I think all of it was really based around kind of an electronic sound. And it was just a groovy album all the way through. I listened to it a few times, like read the lyrics through and everything, and I was just grooving the whole time. It was just a really well produced, well put together album. I think this guy, Kevin Parker is his name, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he has done, it's basically just his vehicle, for his music. Kind of like Nine Inch Nails, like it's really just Trent Reznor and the people that he pulls in to like help him create that sound. But Tame Impala is it's really Kevin Parker's voice. It's his decisions about where it goes. And from what I understand, he really just kind of does what he wants, because like you said, that Elephant song was again the only one that I think I knew as well. So I was expecting this to be kind of like a Black Keys or like Jack White kind of really guitar based, almost blues based kind of thing. And it wasn't that at all, but it was, even though I wasn't expecting what this album was, I still really enjoyed it all the way through.
Yeah. And he's an interesting guy, because like you say, it's like his vehicle and there's a unity of vision to the projects. I don't know if you knew this, but he basically writes all of it, records it all himself, produces the whole thing. Like the album itself is always just him playing every instrument, putting it all together. That's all him. And then he has kind of a rotating cast for Tame Impala, which is who he tours with. And there are other people from a band called Pond, which is another Australian band. And they got a couple good songs. I can't name any off the top of my head, which is a ringing endorsement, but I've enjoyed some of the Pond that I've heard. So it's other members of Pond that will join him when he's actually on tour, but in studio, it's all him. And it's basically wherever his mind takes him. And one thing I really love about his production style is this cool technique that was pioneered by Phil Spector and Larry Levine back in like the 50s and 60s. The wall of sound.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck me. And like,
oh, yeah.
For those who don't know, not to mansplain the wall of sound to you, but it's essentially like the misnomer is it's just like crank up the fader on everything and it's just loud. But what it really is it's like taking the acoustic guitar and maybe like two electric guitars and layering them so they're indistinguishable from one another, but they just create like a much fuller, more textured sound playing the same thing. So like famously, Brian Wilson did it on Pet Sounds, but with him, it was really like filling out the dimensionality of the sound rather than Phil Spector wall of sound, which was kind of like crank it up to 10 and rip the knob off.
Yeah.
So it's just like a really interesting technique used to great effect with Tame Impala as well. So I really enjoy the production style on Tame Impala shit.
Yeah, it was, and that's a great way to explain it. And if you're not totally familiar, like we've talked about the E Street Band a lot, that's a really good example of that style where it's like they fit things in, where there's a gap that sounds like it needs something else, they fit it in. So it just always feels like you're listening to a full song. It doesn't ever sound like a demo. When you listen to the Beatles, you can hear the individual instruments. It's two guitars, a bass, and drums, and you hear that every single song. and you can hear each one of those. And they don't, until like later, they didn't really layer their instruments or anything like that. So it's like the Help album, Meet the Beatles, like those really early ones, you can really hear that, where it's like just a very simple song. You know, Elvis was the same way. But then when you get to Phil Spector and that wall of sound, that's when things really started to blow up. And that's when you started to have bands that had, 8, 9 people in them, because you had room for all those instruments now, and you could really do that. And with this, I think he did everything basically electronically, on the Slow Rush album here, but it's that same idea. It's, where there's space for something, he found something to put there. So it's never boring to listen to. There's always kind of something, another layer that you can peel back and hear if you try to. I think it's similar to like what you say with Trout Mask Replica with Captain Beefheart, where it's like, if you pick something that you want to pay attention to, you can just follow that through the whole song, and everything else kind of falls around it. Or you can just step back with this one and just listen to it as a whole, and it's just a groove. Like every bit of it is just they're just good songs to listen to.
Yeah, it's a vibe, as they would say. And yeah, it's I will offer the caveat that musically it is just really fucking fun to listen to. Mm-hmm. Lyrically, it's a little shallow, but that doesn't or shouldn't detract from your enjoyment of it. It just means that for our purposes, it's a little less meat to pick off the bone thematically. But where he does choose to apply himself, there's a lot you can go into. And it's not like, I have to parse through these lyrics and figure out what he meant. It's all right there. It's very clear what he's speaking about. But those are the moments, I think, where he's a little more vulnerable or writing from a little bit more of a deeper well of emotion. And you can absolutely pick out what songs those are. So
yeah,
that's my caveat before we talk about the album.
And I was also, before we get started with actual songs too, I was also kind of reading through, when I put it up on Spotify on my TV, there's always, it pulls the Genius lyrics and kind of the info about the songs over sometimes. It's almost like a pop-up video. And he said, he's like, this is not a concept album. A lot of it is based on the like time and things like that, but this is not a concept album. Well, Kevin Parker, we are out on that line, and that is a goddamn concept album. You thought you were going to sneak that by us. All of the songs, really, a lot of them do have to do with time. There's not one central story, and I do say it, tongue in cheek, that it's a concept album, because I don't think there's one constant theme that he's going for here, other than just kind of looking at the passing of time and, comparing who he used to be to who he is now, is I think how he bases a lot of the songs. And so he starts out and, right with that, called One More Year. We're not going to dive too much into this one. We kind of selected, about 6 that we're really going to dive into, but this first song is a good starting point, where he is talking about the difference between 1 year ago and now. And whether they're going to spend one more year where they're at. So it kind of gives you a good intro to what the album is going to be about, and kind of the subject matter that he's going to get into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, just like to follow up on that. It's a great starter because it gave me the similar willies to what I get every New Year's. I'm not a person who like melts down on a birthday and it's like, fuck, I'm older and I haven't accomplished anything. But like New Year's Eve, for some reason, fucks with me bad. Because it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like another year gone, one more year, here we are. Like, what's changed? What hasn't changed? And it's an interesting song to capture that vibe, that like countdown to midnight vibe. So it's a good way to start it off.
And the chorus is awesome on this one.
Yeah,
great beat. Chorus is awesome on this one. Now the next song, Instant Destiny. Now this is a great song. Now this is one that I, it was a very, like, almost Caroline Rose-esque, like the sound of it. So this was at a point in the album where I still wasn't aware that it was all going to be electronic. I was still kind of waiting for that kind of rock and roll thing to come back into play. But when I listened to this one, I was like, oh man, he's really like this. He's going too far into the electronic music. I was like, there's no way that he's going to have something so different from this on the album. So I think this song is where I realized what this album was going to be like. Just with how similar it was to the first song as far as the type of production there. But it's so many cool little lines in this one too. Like, let's cause something permanent, just so we know we can. And it's like, it's about just like getting married, and it's a love song, so it's like just the way he says it though is not like, oh, I'm going to get down on one knee, I'm going to tell you I love you, I'm going to propose, not like that. It's like, let's cause something permanent just so we know we can. It's like almost proving a point to themselves and being like, hey, why not? Let's do this. Let's get married.
Well, yeah, and I think like I don't know, I've never been engaged or anywhere close, but there is like ostensibly such a permanence to that action, and like, whether people get married and then divorced or they're married forever, like it will have ripple effects throughout the rest of your entire life. So this idea like I'm about to do something crazy, it's like, it's a good crazy, it's a bad crazy, it's just crazy. It's kind of this like speeding down the highway without the brakes on kind of feeling. And it's kind of exciting to listen to. You're like, oh, fuck, yeah. I mean, like, the edge of the cliff is coming, for better or worse. So, like, and it actually, like, I don't know how comfortable you are sharing this kind of stuff, but, like, you're engaged. You're an engaged man. You're a spoken for fella. Yeah. Sorry, ladies. You'll have to deal with me. But, like, leading up to the moment where you knew you were going to ask her, like, what went through your mind? Or, like, what were you feeling? Were you just, like, shitting like a dog? Or like shaking like a dog shitting peach seeds, or what?
Oh yeah, like a dog shitting razor blades. It was not. Yeah, it was not. It was. I was so nervous. Obviously, she had no idea that it was happening. We did it on a beach in Florida with my family there. My family knew that it was happening because I had, requested that they take pictures so I wouldn't have to pay a photographer. I was really planning ahead here. But yeah, like leading up to it, I wasn't thinking about anything, but I was nervous as hell. Like the emotion was nervous. The thoughts, head empty. There are no thoughts, head empty. And then when it got to the point where I was going to do it, I was like, I'll just rip off the Band-Aid. Like, let's do it. Let's see how it goes. And it, thankfully she said yes. But yeah, it's definitely, when I was listening to this song, it's like, you just kind of, you find that person, you make that decision together. It's like, yeah, you're the one, you're my best friend. You're the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. So let's just do it.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, that's awesome. And like, I can't say, yeah, I totally understand the experience from listening to the song, but I definitely get that sense of like, oh my God, here it comes. So it's very affirming to hear that was your experience as well. Yeah,
and I remember none of it happening. Like, I don't remember getting down on one knee. I don't remember asking the question. I don't remember like the immediate aftermath. I saw the pictures, so I saw what happened. But yeah, it was just like from that 4 or 5 minutes of my life, from when, like right before I was going to do it to like a few minutes after, it was like I had a concussion. It might as well have not even happened.
Now that's beautiful.
Yeah, just beautiful. Just beautiful. Yeah, there's the outro on this one is what I really wanted to kind of draw attention to, is kind of encapsulates what I think a lot of this album is like kind of this almost like a magical place, but also grounded in like very real emotions. So it's, let's drink this magic potion of love and devotion, and then let's see how it goes. And I think that's very much his attitude on this album, is like, well, I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with where I'm at, so I'm just going to do what I love to do and see how it goes. But it seems like he's very optimistic about how that's going to go for him.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sonically what's going on too, particularly on this song, but throughout the whole album, is it really gives you a sense of time and place. And I think it will be different for, like, the sounds that you're hearing will trigger a different sense memory for every person. But I know for me, like, I've spent time in Los Angeles, and I just get this, like, LA at magic hour kind of feeling on this song, where you're just, like, driving, and you like the fucking Pacific Ocean is right next to you. You can see it. Everything's all pinks and purples, and it's like that magical time of night where you're kind of frozen in amber. You know what I mean? Like, you're not thinking about like, oh, fuck, I got to get to my reservation and I hope we get out in time for the movie. Like, it's just impossible. You're kind of surrounded by this esoteric beauty, and it's a feeling more than it is a thought or anything else. And that's definitely something that Kevin Parker, because it just feels weird to call him Tame Impala. Yeah. But it's something Kevin Parker does really, really well. Is like, you can tell he's got something in his head that is creating that vibe, and it translates perfectly to you. It's like in The Good Place. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's flavor of ice cream is going to be completely tailored to them.
Yeah.
So just a fun thing the album does,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Then the next song, Borderline. Now this was one that I definitely said was this is probably my favorite one on the album. I mean, if not, it's probably top two. I mean, there's not many on the album I liked more than this one. And this is, I think, one that's been a little bit more popular. I think it's made it onto TikTok. So I think that kind of is, yeah. And I'm not personally on TikTok, but I hear tons of it because my fiance will watch it, fairly often throughout the day. But there's some really kind of clever things that people do. And sometimes they'll use Thundercats music on there a lot. And they'll use like this song on there. They'll use a couple other Tame Impala songs as well. But I got like kind of familiar with this one in like minute long snippets before I heard it in full on the album. So I recognized it immediately. I was like, oh, this is one I've like heard before. And it's definitely just a bop. It's a good song. And I think it's kind of about, just kind of like you're obviously taking some substances, but you're getting to a point where maybe you've done a little bit too much and you're right on that edge. And I'm sure some of our listeners have been there. That can be quite an exciting thing. That can be quite an exciting place to be, where you feel like you're about to go off the rails, but you're kind of keeping it under control. And it's, he says, gone a little far this time with something. How was I to know this high came rushing? And it's clearly he like was probably doing a couple things. Then he had decided to add a little bit of something else in there, and it might've been too much, but it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you've been in that place, you know exactly what he's talking about in this song, and it can be a good place.
Oh, it's a deadly proposition. I had me a little experience with that New Year's Eve. I want to say 2011 into 2012, maybe. It was either 10 into 11 or 11 into 12. But I was just, having myself a little poo-poo platter of substances. And just like that moment came where I was like, oh my God, if you even like fart the wrong way, you're going to be fucked for the rest of the night. So this is great. You are on the borderline, and just remember that and maintain this, because this is going to work out beautifully if you can not fuck this up. So it's a great, and like it does kind of have this like ominous sense, like the way that the song sounds, on the borderline, like just this kind of like driving synthy. I don't know, like if I close my eyes and listen to it, I see all red and black. Like just this like kind of tunnel that you're barreling down. Like, yeah, it's totally fine if you stay right here, but if you get out of the car, you're going to get smashed. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle.
Yeah. An interesting fact about this song too, when it was released as a single originally, and I believe performed on SNL, it was like quite different actually. And he went back and tinkered with it for the album release version. And there's some controversy as to which version people prefer, but I don't know how you beat this. This is fucking great.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard the other. I'll have to listen to it, but I mean, I really liked this one, so I can't imagine I'm going to hate the other one, but I probably won't like it much more than this one.
I think it's more stripped down is what I understand. Like a lot of synth got added to the album version.
Okay, yeah, because he definitely, like, there's no song, I don't think there's a single song on this album that you can't dance to if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all pretty upbeat. And then the next one was one that you said that you really liked, is Posthumous Forgiveness.
Yeah, I really like this one on two levels. I think thematically, the story that it's telling, it's a reckoning with his dead father. And from what I can gather, his parents got divorced when he was young, and his dad was kind of a Frank Gallagher, wasn't really there for his son when he needed to be. Constantly making up excuses and a little bit of an absentee, and certainly like a do as I say, not as I do type guy. Because around age 12 or 13, Kevin Parker was like, hey, I'm obsessed with music. I think this is something I'd like to do. And his dad was like, no, be an engineer. Don't be stupid. The music business will just like chew you up and spit you out. Be an engineer. And he did that for a while. Kevin Parker went to uni and was going to be an engineer. And then he's like, this is too fucking hard. He switched to astronomy.
Okay.
And he was on the way to his last astronomy final when one of the record companies, I can't remember which one, but they called him and were like, yeah, we'd like to work with you. And he fucking turned the car right around and went home and just started making music instead. So clearly, like, there's a little bit of a sense of destiny to what he's doing with his music. And I think a lot of that weighs on him in terms of his relationship with his dad, who wasn't a great role model and wasn't there. So the first half of the song, and that's the other cool part about the song, is that it's divided into two very distinct parts. The first part is like very bitter. It's not raging angry to like Eminem levels, but like it's very bitter. It's acerbic. It's him being like, you know, you were never really there, and all the excuses you made, we should have seen through them, but you know, whatever. People cut their dad slack, right? So it's kind of him airing his grievances. And then the second part, like musically, it becomes much lighter and much more like conciliatory. And he starts talking about all these regrets he has. Like there are lines where he's like, I remember the time I was on the phone with Mick Jagger. I remember the time I recorded at Abbey Road, and like all these major musical milestones I wanted to share with my old man, and I can't because you're gone. So I carry all this resentment towards you that's not worth carrying, so I don't want to feel that way anymore. But on the other side of the coin, like, I'm also super fucking sad that we didn't get a chance. Like, there's the line, you took all your sorries to the grave with you. So it's like a very tough position to be in, because it was a bad relationship that never really got fixed, and he is left alive to bear all that guilt. So I think on the level of that complexity, thematically and lyrically, and the way that he did it stylistically with the music, this was like one of the standout tracks on the album for me.
Yeah, there are some really, really good lines on this one. I think lyrically, this is probably the best one on the album. You know, as far as just, you know, kind of what I look for is like, I very much lean towards the singer-songwriter and just like kind of rock and roll type of music is what I listen to. So this is very much that style of writing. You know, it definitely has a story that it tells. You know, and you could store an ocean in the holes in any of the explanations that you gave. You know, it's just that really good imagery that he does use throughout the album. I mean, it's not just on this song, but this is definitely the most pointed use of it. You know, this is the most structured kind of use of, you know, what I would consider traditional songwriting and traditional lyric writing kind of tropes. But he really does a good job with this stuff when he wants to. You know, when he decides that's the kind of song he wants to write, he knows how to do it and nail it.
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful. I really enjoyed this one quite a bit.
Yeah. The next song, Breathe Deeper. So this one is kind of a, you know, we're not going to spend too much time on this one, but it's definitely kind of a defiant song, you know, and the verses really kind of back that up. You know, he says, like, if you think I couldn't hold my own, believe me, I can, believe me, I can, believe me, I can. You know, and it's very much a repetitive song lyrically. You know, he changes those lines here and there, but they're all basically saying, you know, if you don't think I can do it, I can do it. If you don't think I'm strong enough, I'm strong enough. You know, it's like, it's constant repetitive, you know, kind of lyrics like that. But it is a good song too. Like just about every song on this album is a bop. And this is one of them. It's just lyrically not that deep.
No, I mean, it's like affirmational more. It's like a mantra more than it is a song. Yeah. And kind of like, okay, well, discomfort breeds creativity, so let me sublimate all of the panic that I'm feeling. Because I think if this is the one I'm thinking it is, I looked it up, and he was like, the feeling I get when I'm high in public, and I feel like I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing, it creates an anxiety that's actually very creatively invigorating. So I think he worked that into this message of like, tell me I can't do it and watch me succeed. So it's like you said, it's like, I guess thematically kind of inconsequential, but sonically interesting at least. Yeah.
And then the next one, Tomorrow's Dust. Again, this was actually a kind of a strong one lyrically, but you know, it's not so deep that we really want to get that far into it, just in kind of the interest of time. But you know, there's definitely some good themes to this one. You know, it's kind of, you know, it's like thinking about how yesterday has already happened and today is going to turn into another yesterday. You know, Tomorrow's Dust, basically the name of the song, you know, so it's just that the concept of time but it's not a concept album. Remember, folks, not a concept album.
Very important.
Yes, but it's this concept of time that he continues to go back to on this album. And it's just another version of that, kind of another way to look at it. It's like yesterday's already happened. Today is going to become yesterday. It's that kind of just constant flow of time. Time is a flat circle kind of idea.
Nostalgia is a dangerous drug. It's a feeling, and you'll chase that dragon forever, but you'll never really tangibly capture. And I know this is true in my case. You'll never like tangibly pin down what it is you're going after. So you get warm fuzzies thinking about college or something, but you can't go back. So you can chase that feeling, but it's just a feeling. It can't be applied in any real way. So it's kind of that like the danger of the nostalgia trip. And it's also like got some really great world music sounds. It does a lot like sonically in this, which I guess is my word for the week is sonic. But it's a lot. It's like a very flavorful song musically. David Byrne would be very proud of the experimentation there.
Yeah, it seems like he definitely has some influences. It very much, at no point did I really feel like he was ripping anybody off or anything like that. But I got that kind of feeling of like Caroline Rose, who definitely kind of sounded like some forms of Bowie at some points. You know what I mean? So it's like I definitely could hear, where he kind of got those things from. But at no point did I feel like he was just leaning way too heavily on influences versus his own creativity. I felt like he really struck a good balance of like, these are the musical foundations that I've built myself upon. But, you're not here to see the foundation. You're here to see me build the house. And so I feel like he's very good at not getting bogged down in the kind of musical tropes and trying to blaze some new ground for himself.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree.
Yeah. The next one, On Track. Now, this was one that you suggested that we talk about, and I certainly like this one as well. But why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
I like it because, to me, it's about the audacity of optimism and the rewards of being a dreamer, which is, it will definitely be difficult, and there will be pitfalls, and you may not feel like you're seeing a ton of progress or making a ton of progress, but follow your North Star, or hey, to quote Casey Musgraves, why the hell not? Follow your arrow.
Hell yeah.
So it starts off pretty soft and slow and welcomes you in, and then it just builds and builds and builds. And again, very affirmational, like building your confidence. But the reason I think I vibe with this is because I definitely have a lot of imposter syndrome issues to deal with, where I'm like, fuck, dude, in college you were super self-actualized, and it wasn't like, oh, in college I drank so many fucking beers, dude, and like, it's totally banarnical, dude. Like, was not anything like that. But like,
you did drink a lot of beers though.
I drank a lot of liquor drinks, so much worse. Had a couple drinks, saw a couple things, but I was like very busy and like very self-actualized, and like threw myself in my theatrical projects and writing and directing and acting and making fucking costumes, building sets, hanging lights. Like, I was never more switched on than I was then. And like, not to toot my own horn, but like my mentor gifted me a journal when I graduated, and she was like, you have no idea how powerful you are. You're going to do great things. And it feels like the beginning of basketball, where the little kid's like, I'm going to be a big sports star. And then it cuts to him as Trey Parker's like, I'm going to own a sports bar. Like, I just look at like where I was then, where I am now, and I'm like, oh man, I just feel this like massive disappointment, which really only should be for myself. Like, I should only be disappointed in myself for myself, but I just like project my insecurity onto other people and like create these feelings of judgment that I don't think are really necessarily there. Probably in the case of my dad, yes, but like other people, I'm like, I don't think they give a fuck, and it ain't over till it's over. So I like need to hear songs like this, not to develop a false sense of hope, but to really realize, like, if you want it that badly, it's on you, and you can still do it, but it's gonna take all of your effort, and for whatever reason you haven't done whatever it is you want to do yet, that's not the end of the story. It's like, to quote Natasha Bedingfield, why not? The rest is still unwritten. So there we go.
Oh man, that's what a reference.
You know, it's been a while. Figured to give her some shine. Hope she's okay. Natasha, call me.
I think I've heard that song recently. You know,
Really?
yeah, I think it's a good. Didn't she? Wasn't her brother? Wasn't it about her brother or something? I think that's what the fiance of the pod was telling me.
I don't know. I think it was the theme song for The Hills or Laguna Beach or something like that. But fun anecdote about Daniel Bedingfield. I'm pretty sure he was the guy that did I Gotta Get Through This.
Yeah.
I Gotta Get Through This. I also think he might have been the guy that did that Fuck What I Did Was Your Fault Somehow.
No, I don't think that was him.
They're not the same person?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, I think that was a tiny Italian man that did that other song.
Oh, how disappointing.
Yeah, I think that Natasha Bedingfield song was about her brother like having writer's block or something like that.
Okay.
Or
That's very sweet.
Maybe she had another song that was about that. Did she have more than one? I don't know. Who knows?
That would make sense. Yeah, because was that a Natasha Bedingfield song?
Could be. I don't know.
These
they
words
all
on
sounded
my
the same
own,
to
yeah.
me.
Okay.
Her, Vanessa Carlton, Michelle Branch, all those, they all sounded the same to me.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, down memory lane, huh?
White houses, baby.
All right, so moving on. So the next one is Lost in Yesterday. Now this one I didn't really find, again, a whole lot lyrically to really unpack. It was all pretty much laid bare, laid right out in the open for you. But goddamn, this bass line in this song, yeah, it's hot. It's hot.
It's spicy. It's spicy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of hitting on some of the things that Tomorrow's Dust hits on.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it doesn't really offer much more new stuff in the way of insight. But yeah, God damn, that bass line is a fucking big,
tasty.
Juicy peach. Holy
Yeah,
fuck.
tasty. It's like it probably, about as good as bass lines were on like Thundercat's album. It's just like it was right up there for me, where it's just like kind of when you can feel it in your bones, that's when you know it's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was a good one for sure. The next one, Is It True? Now this one was maybe I feel like the most honest, where, he kind of was very optimistic in some songs, very introspective about his past in others, and kind of, but this one, I feel like he was very honest about being unsure. I feel like a lot of his other songs, he was very sure about how he felt, whether that was sad or happy or optimistic about the future. This one, I feel like he was kind of like, not sure if this is going to last forever, but that's okay. And still, like, I feel like he's always got that acceptance of like, it just is what it is. The world is going to be what it's going to be. And you just have to kind of stick and move and adapt to it. So there was that kind of an optimism throughout the whole thing. But I think on this song in particular, he really addressed that, like, well, I'm not really sure how it's going to go kind of feeling.
Yeah. And I think it was, this is going to sound insulting, lyrically thin, in the sense that he wasn't trying to do too much. He was kind of just letting the sentiment speak for itself without putting a hat on a hat, as I like to say. Mm-hmm. And I'll be totally honest, this one, in the grand scheme of things, didn't do it for me as much as some of the others did. Mm-hmm. But I think, again, that's the beauty of this process, is we come up with different things, and where we overlap is very interesting. Mm-hmm. So, I think there's just like an interesting sense of romance to it that he neither did too much or too little with. So it was a nice, right down the middle track. I was whelmed, neither over nor under.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was really the chorus on this one that really,
it's a good chorus.
That really did it for me. Yeah. Because musically, it's all gravy on this album. Musically, it's really good. And it's just when he links up, sometimes he does these kind of, there's a repetitiveness to the chorus. She just said, "Is it true? Is it true? Tell me now." And he's like, "That's a promise I can't make, and I won't validate." But it's just like kind of very repetitive. He says "I" a bunch of times, and it's I. So it just has that kind of like very easy to listen to and very easy to get hooked into it. And so the rest of the song kind of really just I like the rest of it because of what the chorus was given to me. And it is funny how, when we talked about, we're like, okay, well, let's each pick our top 3 songs, on the album, and we'll just discuss those. And I was thinking, we weren't going to pick the exact top 3, that wasn't ever going to happen.
Right.
But I figure we might overlap on one of them, but no, we picked 3. We each had 3 distinct, unique songs off the album, out of the 12 songs on the album. And I think it does go to show, how varied and diverse he is on this album. It all sonically is very similar, but he's very good at differentiating the themes and making things different enough where each song you're getting a new little piece of him. And I thought that was really clever of him to do. And I don't know if that's something he consciously did, or if it just happened to be that way, but it really was well done.
Yeah, and it's just very accessible without being lowest common denominator garbage. Like I said, the magic mirror from Harry Potter, you look into it and everybody sees something different. Or the magic cabinet from Harry Potter, where the thing comes out of it and scares the fuck out of you. It's a different thing tailored to your fear. J.K. Rowling really stretching herself there.
Oh, yeah.
I imagine a trans person comes out when she sees the boggart in the closet. So.
I almost bought the Harry Potter book the other day. There was like some special edition one, like a picture book of Chamber of Secrets, and it was like really cool looking. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and not give any money to her.
No more money to JK. Sorry, bitch.
No. And I really want to buy that like 8 movie set on Blu-ray of all the movies. But again, I don't want any more of my dollars in her pockets.
Yeah, no. Fuck that
no
shit.
Thanks. Yeah.
Goddamn turf.
And then the last one that we mentioned was one that you brought to the table. It Might Be Time. So tell me a little bit about this one.
It dovetails with what I was saying before about On Track. Sorry, we're an analog podcast and I have a notepad. But it dovetails with the themes of On Track in the sense that the whole theme of It Might Be Time is, I think if you were to finish that sentence, it might be time to pack it in, to find a new line of work, to get realistic with yourself. It's very much a song kind of exploring the hack fraud mindset. So, have I lost the magic? Have I lost my mojo? Have I lost my passion? Am I still on the right track at this point? Does anybody give a fuck about what I have to say anymore? There's a lot of paranoia and doubt that goes through this song that I found really interesting. And then there are these lines. Let me get the lyrics up. I'm not super handy with the lyrics all the time. God damn it, genius. For exactly this reason. But it talks, so verse 2, I've been lost before, so tell me it's not over, because I finally got something going, and suddenly all my friends are growing up and moving on. I must be missing something. I just want to keep this dream alive for now. Don't they know nothing lasts forever? And I fucking relate to that on an extreme level, and none of this is meant to make you or any of these other people feel bad. But it's like, you are in a big boy relationship. You're engaged to a great woman, and like, that's fucking awesome. Friends of the pod, Dante and Andrea, got married, bought a house, had a kid. It's fucking awesome. Friend of the pod, Tanner, in a long-ass relationship. Like, all of this is great, and I've watched a lot of people that I love come into their own and like really move forward and change in really interesting and awesome ways. And like, I guess it's probably harder to see your own personal growth or lack thereof sometimes, but I definitely do look at it as like a grass is greener kind of thing where I'm like, oh, fuck, I wish I were that self-actualized. But also at the same time, if I can't be that self-actualized, why don't you guys come back to me and we can all pretend that we never grew past 24. It's a good little sweet spot for all of us. So let's all just get like fucked up all the time and eat pizza 3 times a day and just like be buds and have no responsibilities. And like, again, it's that idea that runs through this album of chasing nostalgia where there's really no end game to that. So it's not healthy to look backwards. It's also not healthy for you to necessarily look at other people and go, fuck, why don't I have that? It's like comparing yourself to Instagram influencers. Like, you're going your own way on your own path, and you are the only one who can fuck this up. So instead of being like, well, why don't I have this? Why don't you figure out what you want and what you have to do to go after it? So again, a very necessary song to know that even someone with fame and success and influence can feel the way that I feel and can phrase it. It's one of those just like stick you in the ear with a dagger kind of moments, because he's not saying anything like crazy specific to me, but it resonated with me to such an extent that I'm like, fuck, I needed to hear that right now. That I'm not crazy for feeling this way. And if I want to do something about it, the power starts and ends with me. So,
yeah. Let's do it. Let's do a thought exercise right
My
here,
favorite.
Alex. Right here on the pod.
all right.
Imagine that you're a little pebble, just a little guy. You could be a little BB, anything just small and round. You're on a slingshot. You're pulled all the way back. So you're thinking, and all of us are the ones that are, the handle. We're all way up there. So you're like, oh man, they're all way ahead of me. But all you got to do is that one thing, that little catalyst, that little thing is going to shoot you right past all of us. So just think of yourself like that. Like you're in a slingshot, but you're pulled all the way back and you're ready to go forward. You just that one little catalyst. That's all you need.
To follow that metaphor, if I'm a slingshot pulled into the position to fire, I'm being held back by you guys, you sons of bitches.
Full circle, baby.
See my greatness.
Full circle.
You've confounded me. You've left me trapped in a permanent amortization phase, and I won't fucking have it.
And I think this one also, like, there's also the kind of like long-term lifetime implications that he's talking about, where his friends are in a place where he wants to be, but maybe that's not what he really wants. He has to figure out where he wants to get to, so he's just kind of stuck in place. It's also could be like just on a nightly kind of basis here, where it's like 4 or 5 in the morning, he's out of drugs and he's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Maybe I'm a little too old to be pushing it this far. And I think he's very good at also, leaving it ambiguous enough where you can decide what it is about. Everything is specific enough where it's like, what emotions he's talking about. What feelings he's trying to get across. The language that he's using, he's not trying to be overly clever with it. He's trying to say what he needs to say in a way that rhymes, in a way that makes sense in the song, and he's very good at doing that. But I think it's also, he's good at making it so, like, if you really want to make it about something else so it applies a little better to you, you can do that.
Yeah, again, very accessible, very easy to be personalized. And for the record, y'all, I don't mean to blackpill you with all of these details of my personal life where I'm just like, I'm a fucking loser, you guys. Like, it's just the pandemic talking. It's hard. You're trapped inside for months on end, and you have nothing to do but think about, like, man, where should I be right now, instead of fucking, eating a green apple in the dark and listening to dark wave music. Like, what the fuck?
With a Trump supporter dad.
Woof. Woof.
Yeah.
Help me.
Like basically as bad as it could be.
Worst case scenario, behind enemy lines. Yeah.
So moving on to the next one, Glimmer. So this is the penultimate song on the album. This one starts out with a cool little, like, just vocal intro. I don't know who he got to say it. Maybe it's him. But it just says, like, it's just somebody talking. It's like, oh, bass, cool. You know how you make the bass better? Crank the bass up. And it's very just true. Like, it's very much his, like, MO, is because, like, at the end of the day, like, he makes dance music, whether it's rock and roll type of dance music or electronic type of dance music, like this album, he makes dance music. And this one doesn't have really anything lyrically other than that intro. And the chorus is just, I just want a glimmer of hope ad nauseum, over and over and over again. But the song is a bop.
Yeah, definitely. And it functions similar to one of the interludes on the Weeknd's album. I can't remember the name of the song, but I remember us talking about it being like, oh, it's kind of creepy. It kind of felt like he was, like, gaslighting a prostitute or something. Like, it had a very, like, unsettling feel to it. And this does not have that feel, but it kind of has that bridge the gap to the end of the album function to it. So, yeah, I mean, lyrically, nothing to dig into, but musically, dance your little ass off while you're chopping up stir-fry veggies.
It's a good one. And then the last song on the album, One More Hour. So this kind of, again, he's telling us it's not a concept album, but the first song is called One More Year, and the last song is called One More Hour. Yeah. And he talks about time all throughout. So tell me all you want that it's not a concept album. My friend, you are on the Out on That Line podcast now. Welcome to the Thunderdome. This is a concept album.
You could tout this. You could tell people what we found in your work.
And again, it's like kind of a very dreamy type of song. You know, it's one of the least direct lyrically that I think he's done. It's more of a, you know, he's kind of floating in his own mind, trying to make sense of some things. And it's a good song. I think this one honestly might be my least favorite on the album, you know, which kind of stinks when the album ends with that. 'Cause you're like kind of end on a like, you know, it's kind of a down note for me, but you know, there were no songs that I didn't like on the album. Like this one I liked less than the others, but still was a song I'd go back and listen to.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it encapsulates all the themes that he's talking about throughout the album. And it's kind of functions as that thesis statement at the end. But yeah, I agree. I think also like following up on last week, Trust, an album that I love. And I like the song Big Sister's Clothes, but I think that's a fucking shit way to end that album. Like, just like depressing. If he ended on fucking Fish and Chips Paper, it'd be an inconsequential song, but at least like kind of leave him wanting more. So yeah, this is a little bit of a, fucking 4 o'clock flat ending. But not so much that you'd be like, well, what the fuck? That negates the entire listening experience. It's not like screenwriting where they'll tell you if your entire movie sucks and you redeem it in the last 3 minutes, it's a good movie. This is not the inverse of that. It's not like, okay, the last song is not up to snuff with the rest of the material. Ergo, it negates everything that came before it. It's just, you know, like you said, I would agree. It's probably my least favorite on the album.
Yeah, it's not, you know, I'm so used to like having like a Jungle Land to close out Born to Run or Searching for a Form of Clarity to close out the album of the same name. You know, it's these songs that are just like the ones that'll stick with you that like will really just be heavy and leave you just like once the album's done. It's like after you're done reading a good book, you like get through the last page and you're just like, oh fuck, that was what an experience that was. You know, it just kind of was a little bit of a letdown, but I think it's because the rest of the songs in the album were so good most of the time that it's hard to match up to that. And then to kind of wrap it all up in a nice little package right at the end. And especially I think another of the issues is that sonically, none of the songs really differentiate themselves that much from the other ones. So you listen to the same things kind of over and over throughout the album as far as the instrumentation and the production goes. And it's all very good, but there's not enough in the last song. Like lyrically, it's definitely not as good as as some of the other songs. So that's, you know, we'll put it down below that, but it's, you know, it's just, again, more the same musically. So it's like, it doesn't differentiate itself. Like it doesn't feel like an album ender, like you're used to, like a Jungle Land or Searching for a Form of Clarity, where it's like, you know, okay, we're at the end of the journey here.
Yeah, and that's a really excellent point. While enjoyable, like really enjoyable, I would say. I'll go back to this many times from here on out. But you're correct in that a lot of it does kind of bleed together sonically, musically. But yeah, it's not like someone like Elvis Costello, again, who will like, okay, I'll sneak a country song in here and I'll sneak a Tin Pan Alley kind of sound in. It's not wild swings in genre. It's experimentation with what you can do with variations on a sound. So it's very successful in that regard, but it doesn't offer a lot by way of variety. So yeah, to get to the end and to then have kind of the final punctuation not really do much to tie it up is a little frustrating, but that's okay.
It was like watching someone do like a double twist backflip off the balance beam and then just stumble a little bit on the landing. You know, it's like it still was cool as hell to watch. This album was cool as hell to listen to, but the landing, you didn't stick it quite as much as he could have, I think. But overall, like I would absolutely stream this album. If you love out, and especially if you're driving, you know, I don't know if the folks out there, if the listeners have their own kind of like driving songs where they're just like really grooving. This album all the way through is a great driving album. Just put that baby on, crank it up, and the time will pass by and like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, it's great. I actually do a lot of workouts to it as well. And if you want other artists, this is just a random thought. We haven't done this before, but if you want artists that are similar to this, I would recommend Unknown Mortal Orchestra, Yola Tango, and Toro y Moi. And the E in that is a Y, like Spanish for and. Those are three groups I think that you'll find a lot of similarities with this style of music that kind of offer a little more variation on it. So I would check those three out if you like this.
Yeah, it was a good one. Thank you, Nor. This was a good album.
Yeah, thanks, Nor.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I would have ever thought of doing this one. It's just Tame Impala's never really been on my radar, but I know this album came out back in February of this year, so it's still pretty new. But I'm glad I listened to it. I mean, there's more often than not, the albums that get suggested to us are really, I end up liking them a lot. It's nice.
It's very affirming that people write in with stuff. So to that end, make sure you guys are letting us know what you want to hear. We have certain ideas in the hopper, but we definitely want to keep our finger on the pulse of what's interesting to you guys. And we're trying to bring these, we've gone down to one album so we can bring these home a little quicker than we have. So keep the suggestions rolling.
Yeah, it's nice to get those in. So if you have our personal numbers, go ahead and text us or send it to us on Facebook, whatever you want to do. But if you want to do it through our social channels, you can find us on Instagram at Out on That Line, on Twitter Out on That Line 1, and the Gmail. Again, if you're gonna email us on the Gmail, we want full sentences, we want full essays, we want long form here, folks. That's going to be, you guessed it, outonthatline@gmail.com. We really love hearing from you. I think we've got a couple albums maybe in the works here, but if you have a suggestion, those are ones that we can certainly push back. Chris Stapleton has one coming up in just a few days getting released. A friend of the pod, Tanner, has requested one by a band called Blossoms. So just putting that on the pod here to kind of hold ourselves to to doing those things. And again, we'd love to hear from you. So just get at us on the socials. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out to know what works and what doesn't. And we're having a good time doing this. I mean, this is track 12. We got a whole album's worth of these now.
Yeah, we're fucking cruising, baby.
Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to add on here? I think we're at a good point to stop.
No, I think we're at a good stopping point. So zip it up and zip it out.
We'll see you next time.